Now we are going to move on to our next item. It's 6.5, our 9:15 presentation of the 2025 Weights and Measures Report. And it looks like we have Catherine Vanderwall here, the Agricultural Commissioner and Sealer of Weights and Measures. Good morning.
Good morning, Board. Catherine Vanderwall, Agricultural Commissioner, Sealer of Weights and Measures. And with me this morning is Sam Upton, Deputy Agricultural Commissioner, Deputy Sealer of Weights and Measures. So I'd like to thank you for your time this morning in allowing us to present our Weights and Measures report, which is fairly new. We brought this to the Board last year for the first time ever with a published report, as well as a presentation to you. So the idea behind this is just to bring awareness to the other aspect of our department, the weights and measures part of it. It's kind of one of those things that maybe a lot of people are not aware of, but it impacts every consumer almost every single day. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And right here is actually our new weight truck. So thank you to your board for the help in that. And we actually have it parked out front this morning, so it can be viewed. So every week, March 1st through 7th is recognized as National Weights and Measures Week. So this is not a Lake County thing, it's not a California thing, this is a national thing.
Nice.
So the theme this year is building a lasting legacy. So Weights and Measures Week commemorates John Adams' signing of the first Weights and Measures Law back in 1799. So you can see Weights and Measures has been around for quite some time. So this is an overview, and it does go by fiscal year. So this is the previous fiscal year, 23-24 overview of what our department accomplished. The reason we go by fiscal year is because we are required to submit a report to the state of California every year, and the reporting period is based on fiscal year. So to try to compile the data in a calendar year would be very time consuming for us. So just know, similar to the crop report, we're always looking kind of like at the past year. So in 23-24, there were 213 business locations inspected, 889 commercial devices inspected, and 17 consumer complaints. So what are some of the devices that are registered in Lake County? So we have gas pumps, counter and computing scales, large capacity scales. So those would be like your livestock scales, truck scales, propane meters, electric submeters, vapor submeters, and then of course we have cannabis scales. So our county does have a device registration ordinance in which we recently amended and your board approved. So this is every commercial weighing and measuring device that's used is registered in our county, which allows us to get these numbers. So weighing and measuring devices. So what do? So we determine if the devices are suitable for commercial use. Sometimes we find that these devices are not. With e-commerce, it's easy for businesses to go online and order their scale or order another device. But sometimes we find that it's not actually approved for commercial use. So we are then educating that business or the owner of that device and notifying them of how they know an approved device and which ones they could purchase. So then we also go out and we test their devices to determine their accuracy. So these are just an example of some of the devices. You can see the water stations. Those are common around the county. People go and fill up their 5-gallon or 1-gallon jugs. A scale at the grocery store or gas pumps. So a little bit about scales. So there's a variety of scales. You can see there's from small to large. Excuse me. So the scales that you go in and say you go to the grocery store and you go to the deli and you ask for a pound of, I don't know, prime rib or something. It's like, so how do you know you're actually getting a pound of that product and they're not also including the packaging material, right? So my staff goes in there and they test those scales. As well as when you go through the checkout stand at a grocery store, there's usually a scale built in. So they'll run across your produce if it's a price per pound. So we're testing those for accuracy as well. So livestock scales, truck scales. Yeah. Is there anything else we want to add on scales? Speak into the microphone. Okay. And then another one is petroleum. So, when you go to the gas station, you might see the little seal on there. I think it's red and white for 2025. I think it was blue and white last year. So our staff actually go out and we test these devices, one, to make sure that the amount that's being dispensed is accurate. So that way, when you're pumping your gas and you're paying for a set amount, you're actually getting that set amount. So we're testing for the accuracy. We also sample for quality standards, and then we send that sample into the state lab. So whether it's gasoline, diesel, and sometimes those are also based off complaints. So if there's a complaint received, we'll go out and take a sample and send that into the state lab also. We also check the advertising and labeling of petroleum products and respond to complaints. So the one middle picture there is a skimmer device. So that's something in addition we do when we do our petroleum inspections. We're also looking for these skimming devices, which are devices that are designed to steal people's credit card information. Some meter inspections, probably the more common ones that we do. So delivery trucks on fuel delivery. This could be like if you have propane delivered to your house for your heater or some other type of heating fuel, or stationary. Maybe you go to the gas station and you're filling up your propane tank for your barbecue. So those devices are metered out. So we also check for the accuracy on those to make sure that people are actually getting what they're paying for. And these are sub-meters. So my office, we are responsible for testing sub-meters and responding to complaints. So this is where you have a utility that's coming into a master meter, and then it's being dispersed out to sub-meters. So think of apartment complexes, mobile home parks. So you have a utility that's coming into the master meter, and then each individual unit has a meter also. So we are responsible for testing those devices and responding to complaints. So not if you're a home with PG&E or city water. We don't do those. But this would include like water meters, propane meters, and electric meters.
I have a question on that.
Sure.
On the electric meters, does it just do like for instance, there's might be different prices according to what time of the day it is?
I can take that. So, yeah, so for sub-metered situations, it's PG&E that sets the rate for that park. And so for mobile home parks, they don't have the time of use available to those folks. We also handle billing complaints where we do look at whether those rates and those tiers in those rates that they have are being followed. So we'll check PG&E's website, see what rates they should be charging the customers at that mobile home park. And then we'll do the calculations, make sure that they're getting the correct calculations for those tiers and those rates. For vapor meters, one thing I could add to that is those devices are owned by the gas companies like Suburban or AmeriGas or something, where the electric meters are owned by the mobile home parks. So those companies, whether it's the mobile home park or whether it's the gas company, are the ones responsible for making sure those devices are accurate.
Okay, but did they break it out by higher rates during the day and lower rates at night, or do they?
No.
No,
So
it's just all a flat rate then at that
it's not a flat rate per se, but it is, it's not a time of use rate. That's the nighttime, daytime thing.
Okay,
But they do have to, on the bill, the bill has to be itemized just like you'd get from PG&E. So if your mobile home park is providing a bill, it's got to have all the information, how many days were in that month, what the rate was, your baseline quantity, whatever that is. And so just everything that would normally be on a PG&E bill would have to be on this bill that the mobile home park provides the tenant.
Okay.
Thank you. And price verification. So currently, our county does not have a price verification ordinance. Other counties in the state do. So a price verification ordinance helps ensure that price verification inspections are happening. So this is Weights and Measures staff will go into stores and there's a process where they kind of randomly take items off the shelf, and then they're checking to see if those prices ring up at the advertised price. So what we do here in Lake County currently is we respond to complaints. So one thing with price verification is that by law, there's no such thing as an expired sale sign. So if a store has a sale price still advertised and they charge the consumer a higher price because they have that sale sign still posted, they have to honor the lower price. Newer technology, so these are it's new and emerging technology, the electric vehicle charging stations, as well as digital meters that we're starting to see. So there's some challenges with these devices, and Sam can of course speak more to this. Some of the challenges include with the electric charging vehicle stations, is that right? Electric vehicle charging stations. Is finding out who actually owns those devices. Because a company or the owner will just go in and put them into a parking lot somewhere or a gas station, and it's not necessarily that business or that gas station that owns that device. The device is owned by somebody else. So as well as testing these devices, so currently the state has standards that can be loaned out to counties to test these devices, as they are kind of cost prohibitive for a county to purchase. Not to mention that technology is changing so fast that some of the standards that were previously approved are kind of already outdated. So it is a challenge. And I believe they also are temperature sensitive. So when you're going out testing the devices, having a shade structure or, other things to kind of keep the device from overheating. And then with the digital meters, a lot of things are being moved digitally, which is great. It allows for companies to, read the device remotely, and then it's easier for them to do their billing. They don't have to send somebody out to physically go and inspect each device and take the reading. Some of the things we're seeing with that, though, is that those devices can be manipulated, which is not okay. You want to speak more to those? Okay.
So for the new technology devices, the different electric meters and water meters, one of the biggest issues that we're seeing is that manufacturers are coming up with new technology at a fast pace, and it's hard for the state to keep up with checking those devices and making sure that they're meeting the standards that previous devices were meeting. And so sometimes they get to us, somebody will see them online and order a device, and they'll get to us before the state has a chance to fully evaluate it. And so we're seeing devices that haven't been fully tested to be commercial devices. And so they have these capabilities which haven't been thoroughly checked, like the remote access type of thing, where it has the capability for somebody to access it and change, from cubic feet for water meter, for example, to gallons and back and forth without any way of preventing that from happening once we've checked it. So we've checked it, we said, okay, it's accurate. It goes out in the field, it could still be digitally manipulated later. And so I guess it's one of those things where the state has to keep up, I guess, with this technology, but a lot of times it falls on us at the county to kind of evaluate these devices as well.
Yeah, and I would kind of just piggyback off what Sam was saying. So for a commercial device to be in use, it has to be type approved by the state of California. So that's where we're seeing like a lot of these new devices that have not been fully vetted or type approved for use. Are there any questions?
I have one. You were talking about the cannabis scale. Is that used also for hemp, or is there another scale for that, or do you even weigh hemp?
Go ahead.
So with cannabis, particularly, they have to be part of what's called a track and trace program, which was kind of put into the law. And the track and trace requires weights to be taken at all these different stages of the process, from when they harvest it to when they ship it, from when it gets processed and then shipped again. And every time it's weighed, those weights, those times it's tested, it needs to be a certified scale. And so for cannabis particularly, they're required to have these commercial devices throughout the process. Hemp, there probably are scales, but it's more of at a retail level or some other part of the process. It's not baked into the law like cannabis was.
There's no real need to weigh it.
Probably not, but I'm certainly there would be situations where somebody might harvest a lot of hemp and be selling it to somebody else, and there would be a transaction related to the weight. And if that was the case, then that would kind of fall under any other scale, where if there's a commercial transaction, then we would need to test it. But cannabis, we're really involved because they need to have these scales. You know, even the producers of the cannabis are required to have these commercial scales. So since it's a commercial scale, we need to test it. And most of the folks here in this county are producers. But even as producers, they need to have a scale, and we got to go out and test it.
I know it's a total different deal because the hemp is mainly for the actual stock, not for the product of cannabis. But I just wondered because it's on the farm bill that you can actually, grow hemp and whatnot. So just a thought, dumb question. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
So throughout the fiscal year, is this an ongoing process where every month you're out, or I guess, for example, with gas stations, do you do that all at one time, or is that ongoing throughout the whole year?
It's definitely ongoing throughout the year. Certain devices, we try to test it at certain times. If it's like propane delivery trucks, we try to test those when they're not really active. So we try to do it in spring or summer because in the winter they're really busy. Same with fuel delivery trucks. Gas stations and small scales we usually do in the winter time, but there's no real set time. We try to get there about a year from when we tested it before.
All right, thank you.
I have a question about the cannabis scale. How is that different than a regular scale?
For the most part, it's not different. There's certain circumstances where they want a really high precision scale, and so that is different because those scales, those high precision scales, require little tiny weights, really high precision weight standards to test it. And so we did need, a while back, purchase a special weight kit to test those precision scales. Before cannabis was around, we did have that occasionally, like if there was a jewelry scale, for example, we would need those. But it was so rare that we didn't have one of those particular weight kits. But now that there's cannabis operations that have those scales, then we do test those on occasion, but it's probably only, I don't know, 10 or 20% of the scales out there are those precision scales. Most of the cannabis folks here are producers, and so they're weighing weights they're more than those precision scales. So then they use pretty much a scale that anyone else would. Mm-hmm. It's just under different circumstances.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, the scales at the garbage facilities, do you inspect those as well? And so, okay, and that's part of it, to make sure that whatever they're weighing when it comes to that, it's accurate. Yeah, okay. All right, do you have another question?
No, I'm sorry. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mhm. And I'll open it up to the public if there's anyone that wants to talk about this item.
Good morning, Julia Carrera, Upper Lake. Thank you for your informative presentation. I have a clarification question that I was actually asked by Katie Evans that I didn't have the answer for, and this is the great opportunity to get it. I heard that, I heard you say you don't inspect meters on residential homes, but with this lack of housing and the laws encouraging accessory dwelling units, currently the law as of January 1st, you can have up to 8 ADUs. Where do you, those sub-meters for those units, do you inspect those, both for water and electricity, or not? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question, and I think that's a new arena that we would have to look into, because it also depends on who's regulating it. So, like, if it's going into a home, it's under the Public Utilities Commission. So, having multiple dwellings on a property that are being sub-metered out is something that we'd have to look into, unless you've heard anything recently.
Yes, it's the California Public Utilities Commission that would handle those type of situations. A lot of times, it's an issue with rates too, where PG&E is charging them like a residential rate, and so there's a conflict with the rates that they're charged. They're charged the wrong rate because it's really a
Right.
sub-metered situation. But I do believe that falls under the California Utility Commission.
Okay, well, just one more question, sorry.
Well,
The-
if you can, if you're going to have another one, go ahead, but we don't have a back and forth commonly. We're going to just go
Yeah,
through the 3 minutes, so if you
I understand
can
that.
wrap it up.
Those sub-meters are certified for 5 years. So I'm wondering who does the recertification after 5 years? Thank you.
Yeah, if you can answer, go ahead.
The ones we check are 10 years. It's a 10-year interval between the meters when they need to be checked again.
All right, any other questions from Zoom? All right, not hearing any. We'll close this item if there's nothing else, and thank you for the presentation, appreciate it, and keep up the good work.